So hello student, today we will discuss about the transportation planning and the demand analysis. So it is one of the important aspect of transportation management. So it is coming under your module of the transportation management. So what are the various planning methods, how we do the demand analysis, how we can correlate the various steps of the planning, that thing will be discussed in today's class. So before going to start, let me introduce myself. Dr. Debasish. I am the Assistant Professor of Civil Engineering Department, JS College of Engineering, Kalyani. Here is my contact number and email ID is given. So for any query regarding this lecture or regarding my previous lecture, you can contact me in the given contact details. So what is transportation planning? First thing we need to know what is the transportation planning. So the transportation planning is preparation planning to move and transfer human, animal or other item to some places to another place. This planning will related to the operation of the highway system, geometry and operation of the traffic facilities. So function of the transportation planning to identify the highway system component, to define transportation planning, to recall the process and purpose of the construction planning, and to identify four models of the transportation system. So basic functions is to identify the highway system component, means what are the various component of the highway. So until and unless we uh, make a connection, make a chain between the each and every component of the highway system, the planning cannot be as proper as we want. To define the transportation planning, to recall the process and purpose of construction of the planning design, and to identify the models. So important of the transportation planning. So first thing is the efficiency. So to achieve the efficient management and better management of the existing resources, effective use of transportation system, use of technology, land use and resource controlling. Next is the quality, to reduce a negative impact to the traffic that produce a pollution. Next, the equity, to meet the travel demand and the responses for all the communities. Transportation planning period. So that there are various type of transportation planning periods are there. The first one is the short time period or the short term action plan. It is basically review the matters that can be completed within 3 years and involve high cost. Example, program and engineer to optimize the use of existing transportation system by installing various traffic control devices such as the sign and the signal. Next is the transportation planning for more than 5 years or the long term program. So this type of planning is more structured and complicated, and it must be designed better than the short term planning. Urban transportation planning process involves planning for the next 20 to 25 years. What are the various characteristics of the transportation planning? So it is to determine the transportation needs, make and build a transportation formulas, study the profitability, traffic and travel pattern is clear, stable and can be controlled, relationship between the various modes of transport, the transportation system can influence the development for that area and ready to serve it. So these are the few characteristics of the transportation planning. So these are the basic characteristics. So the one of the most significant is the why we need the transportation planning, whether the need is justified. First thing we need to think, or we need to ask ourselves whether the transportation planning is really required or not. If required, then based on which parameter we need the planning, because for a planning aspect the cost involvement is very high. So if the beneficiary, the number of the beneficiary or the amount of the beneficiary is good enough, then we can go for the proper transportation planning. So the transportation planning element, so there are the first thing is the planning process. So means what are the various process we need to follow. First one is the studied and the research stage. So as we all know, for any technical implementation or for any implementation of the project, the background study is highly required. Without having a proper knowledge of the previous study, we cannot proceed for the objective and the methodology and finally the outcome. So the research and analysis that shows the current demand and the relationship of the movement with the environmental demand. Forecast stages. This is one of the vital things because when we are talking about the planning, it definitely include the future perspective. Means we, if you are talking about the planning, it means that we are doing some research work, doing some analysis for the existing and as well as for our future generation. So the forecasting is highly required and highly essential for any planning aspect in the society. So for formulating the plan, predict future travel demand and make a recommendation to fulfill the traffic demand. The evaluation stages to assess the whether the proposal made satisfactory demand and provide the maximum benefit to the community. As I said that it should be it should provide a maximum benefit to the society. Next is the monitoring and the review. Next we do apply some small pilot project and we will see whether this have a positive significance or not. And finally, if we get some positive sign, finally we go for the implementation. So what are the various processes? The situation definition, the problem definition, the search for solution, the analysis of the performance, evaluation of the alternative, choice of project and specification and the construction. So the situation definition, as I said that at the just beginning of this lecture, that whether we really need a planning process, and if yes, then in which area or in particular in which field we need to do some proper planning, and for that what are the various things. So first thing is that we need to understand the situation. Until and unless we identify the problem, we cannot predict the situation. So problem identification is also one of the significant, because until and unless we know that I have a fever or I have a headache, how can I take a medicine? The taking of medicine is different thing. Say suppose there are four medicine, which medicine I am going to take, that is a different issue. But first thing is to identify the problem. Next thing is that is it really required to have that medicine, or if I take a snap for half an hour the headache will be vanished. So it depends on the situation or your decision. So planning is nothing but a decision making policy. Third one is a search for a solution. As I said that for headache there are four number of medicines are there. Which medicine I am going to take? So we have to search for, or is there any other medicine apart from the medical medicine? Medicine in means the some exercise are there, some oils are there, then some gentle massage will be can also relax the headache. So what are the various possibilities to reduce my headache? So same way, suppose I want to go for a parking on street parking planning or say underground parking planning. So there are n number of solution. So first we have to search for that n number of solution. Until and unless we can get all the solution, how can we going to select which one is the best solution, right? Next is the analysis of the performance. We need to do some analysis on the solution, such as the solution I have searched. Then evaluation alternative, what are the alternative as present, and finally which I will going to choose, and finally the implementation part. So the situation definition is basically involve all of the activities required to understand the situation that give rise to perceived need for a transportation improvement. Information about surrounding areas, its people and their travel habit may be obtained. Problem definition, to describe the problem in terms of objective to be accomplished by the project. Yes, the first we need to set our goal, or we need to set our objective, and for that we need to know the problem definition. So the problem statement is one of the crucial things. Next is the objectives are statements of purpose such as to reduce the traffic congestion, to improve safety and etc. Search for solution. Consideration is given to variety of ideas, design, location, and system configuration that might provide the solution to the problem. Analysis of performance to estimate how each of the proposal alternative would perform under the present and the future condition. So say suppose I have total 5 proposals or 5 solution for my parking issue. Now I have to do at least a small pilot project from each by implementing each and every possible methods I have collected or I have gathered, and I have to see whether the plan A is give me a better result or plan C is give me a better result. So to judge or to compare the thing, how can we compare the thing until and unless do some analysis? So we have to do the analysis for all the possible solutions. It may be a small data set, it may be for a small data set, but we have to do it. Analysis of the performance to estimate how each of the proposal alternatives would perform under the present and the future condition. Evaluation of the alternative, to determine how well each alternative will be achieve the objective of the project. Next is the choice of the project made after consideration of all factors involved and specification and the construction. Once the transportation project has been selected, the project move into the detailed design phase, which each of the components of the facility to be specified. So this one is the situation definition, means what are the various situation. So the inventory transportation facility measure the travel pattern. Then the review prior to the studies, means we have to do some review studies. As I said that the review study is highly essential, because until and unless we do for any preview study or the previous literature survey, it is not possible. Next is the problem definition. So define the objective, how to define the objective, how to find the travel. So for transportation planning, keep yourself as the user. Until and unless you keep yourself as the think yourself as the user, it is tough to find out or to identify the problem. Next is the search for the solution. So for that you have to do a rigorous research or rigorous analysis on the finding the alternative solution for our problem definition. It may be a mathematical model, it may be a statistical model, it may be some lab based experiment, or it may be a field based experiment. Whatever may be, but maybe the thing, but we have to do some rigorous analysis. Finally, the analysis of the performance means we have to do some analysis on the our selected selected alternatives or the selected thing, and based on that finally we determine the cost, the impact of our plan, and the various type of the other parameters related to traffic. Next is the evaluation of the alternative, means what are the various alternative determined. For say suppose for the various all type of project, first thing we need to define is the cost, benefit and the cost ratio, then the cost effectiveness, then profitability. So these are some example, these are not that these are the only thing. So there are another things also there, but these two three parameters, the first concern thing we need to keep in your mind while we prepare for DPR or something like that. Next is the choice of the project. So considering the factors involved, the revenue cost forecast, the site location, then political judgment. So there are n number of factors are there based on we choose for a particular project. So say suppose the underground tunnel system, underwater tunnel system, and there is another on the surface terrain. So I will choose which project I will going to select based on my capacity, based on my financial sustainability, based on my technology. I need to choose my best project. I need to choose my given project for the final implementation. And finally the specification and the construction. So design of any structure, contractor selection, transfer of completed structure to the authority for operation, and finally the maintenance. So for planning process, the inventory and the land use. There are two aspects which we need to always keep in our mind. So if we're talking about the inventory, it includes the establishment of the data for the evaluation of the existing travel demand and the existing travel capacity. Inventory means what we have, and land use means what are the various type of land use are there where we want to do some planning. We are thinking for doing, we are thinking to do some, implement some planning process. Under the inventory, where it will involve two main tasks, which is collecting and processing of data. But if we are talking about the land use, it requires a detailed assessment and forecast in terms of distribution of area, population, employment, economic, social and land activities. This is the another component, that is the trip generation, and another component is trip distribution. So what is trip generation? Trip generation is the first model of travel demand used in transportation planning process, used to predict which zone the traffic will flow. Say suppose I am living in zone A, and there are total 10 zone around my home. Okay, so suppose where I am living, that is a residential complex. Okay, purely residential complex. Now suppose there are total 10 zones around my home, and suppose two zones are for shopping area, three zones are for office area, two zones are for restaurant, one zone is for multiplex. So there are these zones are divided based on the land use, means the use, the this land is used for which purpose. So based on that, we will figure it out that which zone the traffic will flow. Means if I we can assume that if the trip is generated from zone A, means the from residential zone in the evening, so it means that either it will go to restaurant, or it will go to multiplex, or it will go to some shopping complex. So it is the rare chance to go that to move that trip to a office area in the evening. So it depends on the area where the trips are generated, and what are the land use nearby the periphery of that generated area. Next is the trip distribution, means how these trips are distributed. Trips generated, okay, no problem, trips can be generated, but it should be distributed. Trip generation means demand. It generated means the demand is increasing. Now the distribution means supply, whether I can supply or I can provide the need to the generated trips, that is come under the trip distribution. So it is a second model travel demand used in the transportation planning to get a travel and the traffic pattern in a zone, and shows the total traffic in certain time, distance and the cost. Next is the modal speed or the mode selection. Because suppose the trip is generated, and there we are ready to distribute the trip, but which mode I am going to select, whether I will use some shared mode to reach my destination, or I will take my own vehicle, own private vehicle. Own vehicles means it may be a two-wheeler, it may be a four-wheeler. So the selection of the mode is another vital for transportation planning. So to estimate the number of the trips by different type of the transport, limited to the public and the private transport only. Traffic assignment traffic assignment or the trip assignment intended to give a traffic direction to which road or network the transport to road or transport the network. Okay, now the trip is generated, trip is distributed, I have selected the mode. Three things have been done. Okay, means I want to go to shopping mall. Okay, there is shopping mall nearly 2 kilometers of my home. Okay, and I want to take my private car, private to I want to take my scooty or my scooter. Now the question is that which route I will select to go to the shopping complex. So suppose there are three alternative routes. So which route I am going to select? So basically it is the assignment, mean the trip assigned to which route, whether we select route A or route B or route C. So this is known as the traffic assignment or the trip assignment. Finally we do the assessment. So assessment is the final part. So it contains the testing and evaluation of the alternative selected, emphasis on the ability of the traffic and the environment impact of each alternative strategy, and to choose and determine the best transportation system for the future need. Now we will be talking about some travel demand model, because but you will be glad to know that you have already covered the four steps. The first thing is we have discussed the trip generation. So what is trip generation? So trip generation is basically is the process to determine the number of trips that will begin or end in each traffic analysis zone within a study area. Number two, to develop a relationship between the trip and production or attraction and the land use. This term attraction is very important in transportation planning aspect. What is the meaning of this attraction? Say suppose in my vicinity there are three shopping complexes are there. Okay, so it is not possible that the all the complexes have the same facility, same infrastructure, everything is same. No, it is not possible. Identical or the symmetrical is not possible. So there must be some difference. So it may be that the multiplex in shopping complex A is good, but the restaurant is in shopping mall 2 is good, but the overall ambient is good in shopping complex 3. So each complex has its own kind of infrastructure, own kind of facility, own kind of attraction. Just I am giving an example for shopping complex. So but the attraction term is valid for each and every component of the transportation planning. So the attraction, based on the attraction, the trip is generated. To use the relationship to estimate the number of trips generated at some future data under a new set of land use condition. Next is the trip distribution. What is trip distribution? It is a process by which the trip generated in one zone and are allocated to another zones in the study area. These trips may within the study area or between the study area and area outside the study area. So to get travel and the traffic pattern in a zone. Next we will discuss about the trip modal speed or the mode choice. So the modal speed is the aspect of the demand analysis process that determine the number of trips of trips between the zones. Depends on the factors such as the traveler's income and the availability of the transit services. Limited to public and the private vehicles only. Traffic assignment, the final step of the forecasting process to determine the actual street and the highway routes that will be used and the number of the vehicles that can be expected on the highway segment, and to give traffic direction to which the road in road transport network. Now, purpose of the travel demand model. What is the purpose? So the basic purpose of purpose process is important to be the transportation planning need to provide a new transportation system, improve the existing system, and build a highway transit system and other. And second one is to determine the number of trips that will use the existing transportation system, trips taken in the form of vehicles or non-transport and private vehicles and the public transport. Transportation studies in planning process. So origin and destination traffic volume studies, traffic volume studies, spot speed studies, travel time and delay studies, and parking studies. So these are the few studies have need to be conducted in the transportation planning aspect. This is the origin and the destination study. So what is origin and destination? To show the pattern and the nature of the daily trips made by the residents. The main purpose of O&D study is to plan the transportation in the urban cities, especially the type of the land uses, road and the traffic networks, and public transportation system. Application of the O&D study: determine the traffic flow. If traffic congestion occur, a shortcut must be planned. Shortcuts means some alternative routes the nearest possible alternative route for diversion, so that the traffic volume or the jam will be reduced in the main arterial road or the main road which passes through the heart of any city or any villages. So a shortcut must be planned to give us comfortable travel to the road user. Determine whether the existing road system is adequate or not. Determine the suitable or the best position for a bridge or new transport terminals to be constructed. Build a transportation models to make sure the transportation planning will be more easier, and also make a prediction about the traffic pattern in the future. Traffic volume study we have already discussed in details. So it is basically to collect the data on the number of the vehicles or the pedestrian that passes a point during a specified time period, to know whether the existing road can be accommodated the vehicles that using a road, and to ensure the smooth movement of the vehicles and their safety. Application of the traffic volume data designed for road rehabilitation, study the traffic at intersection, study of the traffic control system, forecast and predict the traffic volume, study of the traffic accident, analysis of the cost benefit for the highway projects. Now, what is spot speed studies? That thing also discussed the conduct to estimate the distribution of the speed of the vehicles in a stream of traffic at a particular location, carried out by recording the speed for a sample of vehicles at a specific location, and will be valid only for the traffic and the environmental condition that exist at the time of the study. Now the application of the spot speed study. So the application, the established parameters of traffic operations such as speed zones, speed limit. Many time you can find out some speed limit in the while you are traveling by road. The speed limit is 30 kilometer, 40 kilometer per kilometer, 40 kilometer per hour, 50 kilometer per hour. It based on the this limit, means based on this spot speed study. And the passing restriction evaluation, the effectiveness of traffic control devices such as the variable message sign to at work zone evaluation, and determine the adequacy of highway geometric characteristics evaluation, the effect of speed on highway, and determine the speed trend, means which type of pattern it follows. Travel time and the delay studies. The travel time study determine the amount of time required to travel from one point to another point on a given route. Information may also collected on the location, duration, and causes of delay. Data also aid the traffic engineer in identifying the problem at the location. Application of the time and delay. So it is determine the efficiency of the route with respect to its availability to carry traffic, identification of location with relatively high delay and the causes of the delay, those delays, determine the traffic time on specific link for uses in trip assignment models, performance of economic studies in evaluation of the traffic operation alternative that reduce the travel time, and to evaluate the changes in efficiency and level of service with the time. Now the parking studies, the need of the parking spaces is usually very great in the areas where the land use including business, residential, and commercial. Yes, because this is the one common problem you can face every time whenever you take your bicycle or your two-wheeler or four-wheeler in some shopping area or commercial area or residential area. It is tough to find empty parking places, and in metro cities it is really pathetic. The situation is really pathetic to find any empty places. Even in the metro cities or the sub metro cities, individual may take half an hour to 1 hour to find empty parking spaces. Can you imagine? So they spend 1 hour for shopping and they spend 1 hour for find empty parking space. So this is the situation of parking is really pathetic in Indian scenario due to the availability of the less space for the parking. Providing adequate parking space to meet the demand for parking in central parking district may affect the level of service. Application of parking data to get the valid information, to know the whether it is adequate parking or not, and to provide the information needed to enable the implementation of payment by the parties involved. So in general policy, there are social aspects are there are economic aspects are there, and there are physical aspects are there. And apart from that, the capacity, priority, and obviously there must be some restraint in while we go for any type of planning, whether it is a transportation planning or any planning in our life itself. So the constraint or the restraint there must be there. So the role of the transportation policy are basically to improve the productivity and the economic growth of that area, provide increased accessibility and the influence and price of the land use, affect the standard of living, means, living of the life, and the affect the environment in the city. So this is all about our today's topic of discussion, the transportation planning. So basically we have learned the way, the four major steps, the trip generation, trip distribution, modal split, and the traffic assignment or the trip assignment. And based on that, what are the various policies, what are the various component, the the parking component, the O&D survey, then the volume survey, speed survey. This everything will came in picture when we are talking about the transportation planning. So in a summarized manner, we can say that the if we want to do a proper parking, proper transportation planning system, then we need to follow all the aspect or the component of the traffic management system for a fruitful implementation of the transportation planning. So thank you for listening. Next in next class we will discuss some another topic of the transportation system. So till the next class, thank you.